Motherless Brooklyn is a film directed, written, produced, and starring Edward Norton, and follows this character named Lionel Esrog, a private investigator that is afflicted with Tourette's, who works for a detective agency operated by a man named Frank Mena, who is played by Bruce Willis. One day, while working a case, Frank is shot dead by a party that he was investigating, and it's up to Lionel to try and solve the mystery of who killed his mentor. Motherless Brooklyn was a movie I was intrigued to see, mostly due to the fact that it was directed, written, and starring Edward Norton, who's an actor I've always enjoyed watching. The cast looked terrific, and it would be set in the 1950s, which hinted that this film would harken back to the old-school detective stories and film noirs of the 1940s and 50s, which is a genre that hasn't gotten much attention in Hollywood in a very long time. It wasn't a movie I was highly anticipating, but I was very interested in sitting down and watching it. Did it turn out to be a great throwback to the old-school film noirs of the past, or was it a failure? Let's find out. The biggest positive I can give to Motherless Brooklyn is the performances. Edward Norton is very good as the main character Lionel. The way he portrays someone afflicted with Tourette's was handled surprisingly well. Going in, I thought he'd be too over the top and cartoony of how he portrayed it, but luckily it never got too ridiculous or goofy to where it took me out of the movie. Alec Baldwin is also good in his role as a corrupt politician, though I will admit there were points in the film where it felt like he was channeling his SNL parody of Donald Trump into his performance, but it wasn't as big of a distraction as the film progressed. Gugu Mbatha Raw is solid in her role as Edward Norton's love interest, even though I do feel like her relationship with Norton could have been developed more. Willem Dafoe, Michael K. Williams, and Cherry Jones also do fine jobs in their roles. Oh, and Bruce Willis is in this film, but I don't have much to say about him, considering his character gets killed off in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Not a spoiler. But this must have been the easiest paycheck of his entire career. Another aspect of Motherless Brooklyn I enjoyed was the production design. All the various sets, the costume design, the look of New York City, and the cars are all top-notch. This film does a commendable job of evoking the time period it's set in. The musical score is also quite good, with a good majority of it being classy and cool jazz music that fit just about perfectly any film noir from the 40s and 50s. It gives the film this calm and composed feel that makes you feel relaxed and at ease while watching it. Even though all the aspects I just talked about are mostly good to almost great, Motherless Brooklyn is quite a flawed movie, and I will tell you why. My biggest problem I have with this movie is without a doubt its runtime. This film runs at an intimidating 2 hours and 24 minutes, and it did not need to. There are many scenes in this film that either go on way too long or add nothing to the story and are there just to fill time. Because of this, there are sections of the movie that feel bloated, and it honestly got boring to watch in parts. This film could have been a good hour 45 to hour 50 movie, and I think it would have had a much tighter pace and flowed much better. I also feel like for a movie trying to capture the aesthetic and feeling of film noirs from the 40s and 50s, it feels way too clean and polished. It should have been a darker and grittier film like the old school film noirs of the past. And no, I'm not saying it should have been shot in black and white or something stupid like that. I'm saying that this film could have played around with having some clever lighting, using shadows and fog to give New York a grimier look, and even be a little more violent, since even the violence in the film feels tame when it shouldn't be. The cinematography and editing are not very impressive either, with many scenes having way too many cuts when they shouldn't, and the cinematography not only being flat, but also incredibly zoomed in, especially on characters' faces, for no reason. Both became a big distraction that I could not help but to focus on during the entirety of the movie. Even though Edward Norton is a talented actor, I feel like he should stick to acting because his directing is flat and dull. It's nothing terrible, but it feels generic. There's not really much of a distinguishable style or visual flair to it. Overall, Motherless Brooklyn was just okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. Even though it has solid performances, some terrific production design, and a good musical score, I feel like the film was bogged down by its unnecessarily long runtime, dull directing and cinematography, choppy editing, and it feels too perfect, even though it's trying to capture the feel of old-school film noirs. It's a watchable movie, but I'd say it's a decent rental, or a good movie to watch on HBO when you're bored and have 2.5 hours to kill. However, this film won't appeal to everybody, and I feel like this film will mostly appeal to ardent film buffs or old people who probably grew up watching film noirs when they were younger. This film requires a lot of patience to get through, which I'm sure a lot of people don't have for movies like this. I'm going to give this film a B-.